So here's a quick video on just an overview and introduction to chemistry. And also it's going to include a few key terms that are going to be useful to you going forward. So if you're just starting out in a chemistry class, the first thing that you're going to want to do is really understand what it means to be studying chemistry, what chemistry itself actually is. So broadly speaking, chemistry is the study of how the stuff that comprises the world around us changes form. Specifically, like a definition that you might be asked for on a test would be that it's the study of the composition, structure, properties, and reactions of matter. But like I said, more broadly, what chemistry is really focused on is how stuff changes, so chemical reactions. And in order to really get into the details of that, we need to focus on and define these things: composition, structure, properties, etc. So as an example, on a daily basis, you observe all kinds of evidence for chemistry. Examples include your laptop battery charging or even cooking your dinner. So in chemistry, what we want to do is investigate these phenomena on not the smallest possible detail, but very, very small scale, and try to understand what it means to say that the laptop battery charges, or what's happening when we cook our food. So in order to go into chemical reactions and to begin to think about these kinds of questions, we're first going to define some terms. One of them is matter. So matter is a technical word. I know we use it all the time, but technically it has a specific definition, which is it's anything that has mass and occupies space. Mass is the amount of matter in an object. Now, don't you just love those circular definitions? Fortunately, I think most of us have an intuitive understanding of what we mean when we talk about matter. And so we can kind of use the word matter to help us realize that mass is kind of like the amount of matter an object has. So matter is anything that has mass and occupies space. And a lot of times that's what you can see or touch around you. It actually also includes things that you can taste and smell, although those things aren't as obvious. Remember too that weight is not the same thing as mass. Weight is affected by gravity. So how much you weigh is going to be different on Earth compared to on the moon, but your mass won't change. So the amount of matter that is in your body doesn't change when you go to the moon. It's just the gravity that changes. So we try to distinguish between weight and mass in chemistry.
So going back to our definition of chemistry then, with an understanding of matter, we can take a closer look at what we mean when we talk about the composition, structure, properties, and reactions of matter. So when we ask about composition, what we want to know is, what is a sample of matter made of? What does that substance have in it? The structure refers to how it's built. How do the bits of matter relate to each other spatially? How are they oriented? How much space is in between? Etc. The properties of matter have to do with how the matter behaves and what it looks like. A lot of times we like to test this in water. So for example, does it dissolve? Does it sink to the bottom? Does it float? These are things that would be used as a property of that substance in order to describe it. And finally, possibly the most important part of our definition of chemistry is that it deals with reactions of matter, how matter changes from one thing to another. And that's really going to be the focal point of the general chemistry class once we've got some other tools in our tool belt. The chemical reaction, when matter changes form. So we're looking at how does it change? It starts out as one thing and becomes something else in the end. What causes that? What's likely to form? When? How? So with the definition of chemistry, we can proceed. The first topic that we'll go into in depth is the composition of matter. In order to do that, we like to first talk a little bit about measurements and science. So we define how to make measurements, how to record them, even how to do calculations with measured numbers. So we'll do that next, and after we've done measurements, we'll come back to composition, and then we'll look at the properties of matter, and finally chemical reactions. So this concludes the introductory lecture that I've prepared for you, and the next lecture you're going to want to watch will be the measurements lecture, and thank you for listening.